All right, welcome to our fifth installation of Coach's Corner. We got Mitch Hancock here. I'm RJ Boudreau. This week, we're going to talk about communicating with your wrestlers and also communicating with your parents. So we just want to discuss our ways and what we use our communication with our wrestlers for and how we do that. So I'll let Mitch go first on this one. Mitch, talk to me about your communication with your wrestlers and how that looks.
Yeah, the big communication word, right? Every wrestling coach sort of cringes when they hear that word because it's not easy, right? It's not easy communicating with an entire program from parents all the way down to the wrestlers. However, it's important, right? So you're trying to develop, 14-year-olds, all the way through 18-year-olds into becoming solid men, right? Or females. So in that aspect, you're trying to help guide them into being productive people. So here I typically use text messaging, emails. I think now more than ever with COVID, our students are getting better at utilizing emails. I still hear often, right, from college coaches when recruiting that the communication efforts with high school students are poor, right? They tend to use social media more than ever. So I think as a coach, you can communicate a lot through social media outlets and platforms. Twitter, for example, Facebook, websites, and try and get as much information out that way at the beginning of the season. I know a parents meeting always helps us. Lying down the foundations and boundaries, right? Don't communicate with me on Sundays. Don't call me after 9 o'clock. That's family time. So I think as a coach, it's important to create those boundaries with parents. And then obviously make sure that you're communicating through wrestlers. RJ, I know you and I talked earlier today, and you're huge on solely communicating with the wrestlers, keeping in mind that they're going to communicate with parents.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say solely, but it is the load is on the wrestler. So I really depend on that. And so I have a parent meeting as well. This year it's looked a little different, but just because of COVID. But usually before the competition season starts, as I get to know the wrestlers, I'll have a parent meeting. And in the parent meeting, I am discussing with the parents that I am going to use their child to communicate all the information to them. And a lot of parents don't like that. They're uneasy. They want their email with the newsletter, with all the details and the bullets, so they can have everything. And I will send emails with some important, things that are upcoming. But it's once in a great while. I use the communication with my wrestlers. So we bring it up before practice. We bring it up after practice. And when we do, I'm going through what I call the house cleaning stuff. So I go through the schedule for the week, who we're wrestling, when we're wrestling them, the times that they're going to be there, when they're expected to get on the bus, when they're going to get off the bus, all of these things. And I let the wrestlers know. I have a very frank conversation with all of them. And I say, listen, if your parents are calling me and asking me the questions about what I'm covering now, I'm going to take it out on you. Practice will not be as fun as maybe it could be, because I am dealing with text messages and emails because you're not relaying the information to your parents. And it's a responsibility for them to do that. Now, this usually works out in a positive way. You work with 14 through 18-year-olds, Mitch, and so do I. We work at high schools. We know that for whatever reason, a kid will reach a certain age and they don't want to talk to their parents anymore. Parents, they come home. How was your day? No, it was fine. And they go in their room, shut the door, and they get to their homework or whatever they're going to do. This forces their hand. They have to talk to their parents to inform them on what's going on. And it oftentimes will create conversations with parents. So parents end up appreciating it. Might not at first, but they end up appreciating the fact that I use my wrestlers to communicate all the information to the parents. So I put a lot of the responsibility on the kid. So I think this has worked out really well for us. It's helped my relationship with my wrestlers, to be honest. I feel like they are much more open in communicating with me. They feel comfortable communicating with me, but they also have a respect for what I do and how much our coaching staff does. So it is not solely on the wrestler, but a large part of it is. I think you touched on college coaching though, with communication and the fact that COVID has kind of brought this email era on, and I will back that up 100%. We have a lot of kids that go on to college, I don't get as many maybe top recruits and college coaches calling me as you do. But I know the ones that I do, those college coaches truly appreciate a young man who can communicate. And they get very frustrated when they send a text message to a kid and there is no response, or they send an email and there is no response. But it's an opportunity for the kid that does communicate well, that does look a coach in the eye, knows how to talk to him, responds to a text politely instead of using acronyms or, texting lingo, things like that. It goes a long way to a college coach. So, we work with our kids on those things as well.
Yeah, or the famous one word response, right? You ask a young man a question and he gets a one word response, or better yet, a thumbs up emoji. It's like, hey guys, we're trying to develop you into productive citizens, right? If I sent my boss a thumbs up, emoji, I just don't think that's as professional. Let's talk a little bit about some of the apps that coaches and teams can use. I know that we have other programs here that use the Remind app, the team apps, and other apps that are available out there to communicate with parents. Something we do here is we have a parent group that's fantastic. So our parents will cover food tables and banquets and information such as that. So we typically communicate with their senior parents and then allow them to communicate with all the other parents when it comes to senior night, the banquet, when it comes to elements such as food tables, like I indicated before, and maybe some questions that underclassmen parents may have. They can handle majority of that, so it's not flowing upwards to the head coach.
Yeah, that's a great.
Any of those apps, Coach?
Yeah, we use Remind we have a parent group for Remind. We have a parent wrestler group for Remind to get the text messages out. I like to use an email marketing software called MailChimp to get it out to program wide. So alumni, people have been in the program before, and that's more of like a newsletter thing, informing people of our golf outing and things like that. But then I use a parent rep, and the parent uses the email chain to get off and get the information out to everyone else. We use Google Docs or Google Forms to kind of collect all the people's information, making sure we have the right stuff, and then I'm using one parent to send the information out to all the other parents. So it's a little bit easier on the coaching staff or on myself. So I'm not dealing with, 40 to 50 individual text messages or emails coming from parents. But yeah, and then also Google Classroom. So many schools are using Google Classroom now because of Google Meet and the security of that. So I now have a Google Classroom. So I'll post documents there. So right now we have to do these COVID documents for testing. I posted both of those documents in the Google Classroom so that kids were able to find those, get those signed, and then got those back to us right away. And it was really convenient. So just little things like that, where to find your physical form, how to do pay to play, post it all in the Google Classroom, and it makes it pretty simple. And that's free to anybody at first. Obviously it's a little bit nicer if you have the G Suite, if your school has that. So if you want to pay for it, it's really not that. I think a wrestling club can afford the G Suite cost to use and utilize Google Classroom. So that's another thing we're doing.
We both have parents meetings tonight. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you're going to cover that you have to answer every single year, and maybe some of the boundaries that you're going to place with your parents, and I'll follow.
Yeah, so this is big and I get nervous about it. I'm speaking through all the parents, but I'm speaking to certain individuals when I'm bringing up certain topics. So for example, the My Way youth parent who has a kid who's a stud, it becomes difficult. They now have to hand their kid off to me and my coaching staff and our program. And they're going to have to go through our practices, and they're going to be going through things that maybe they think they know already, right? And so I'm going to be teaching basics to those kids. And there's instances, for example, where a kid will come home, his dad will ask him, how was practice? What'd you do? And if what the kid tells the parent isn't what the parent wants to hear, and the parent now all of a sudden is gruffing and humbling about, that's a stupid practice. Okay. Now you've taken the credibility away from me, which is not helpful to me, but it's not helpful to your son or your daughter. So that is really important. So what I'm telling everyone is that whether you like what I'm doing or not. And believe me, we've won 7 straight state championships, and there's plenty of people who don't like the way I run practice, and that's fine. Because I don't run the greatest practice for everyone. It's hard to do that for every single person. But no matter what, I need you to back me up. So that's what I'm saying to parents. Like, I need you to support what I am doing. I need you to get behind that. I need you, when your son comes home and complains about practice, to tell them, hey, your coach has got a plan. He knows what he's doing, and he wants to help you. And then there is an issue, you can contact me directly, and I can figure it out. But I need you to be positive about that, because maybe you're not happy with what weight class your kid is, why he wrestled a certain weight. And then parents assume that they know what's going on, but they really don't. They don't know why I put a kid up to 189 when he weighed at 171. I cut a kid all the way down to 171, and then I bumped him up to wrestle 189. The guy's a moron. Well, they don't know everything that's going on with our coaching staff. So I need them to be positive no matter what. And so I've really thought about this. I'm a father of 4. I have 4 daughters, and they're starting to get into sports. And I'm waiting for the moment where they get on a team where I think the coach is a moron. And I don't think that'll happen, but it might come up. And if
it will.
I am going to get behind that coach, whether I think they're a moron or not, because it is good for my kid to know that the coach has a plan. And no matter what, they're spending their time at practice. I'm not going to take that away from my kid. I want them going in and thinking that their coach is the best, no matter what I think. I'm not going to get in between my kid and their coach. So that's kind of what I tell parents.
Yeah, you know what happens when it does? It's the body language. Kid starts rolling his eyes, throwing his hands up, like coach doesn't know what he's doing because dad is questioning him at home. We call that dinner table talk. So here in our program, our dinner table talk has to be supportive. It has to be positive, right? And the bottom line is coach is the person who runs this program. He's got a good staff. Listen to him, follow the path, and good things will happen. A few other topics you may want to touch on with your parents at parents meeting, obviously is weight management, nutrition. Some young students, young athletes, even your upperclassmen will struggle with that and the constant yo-yoing. So I know in our program, we weigh our guys in, weigh them out, and then we have a Monday weight allowance for them as well. So we try and reduce that. Your wrestle off policies, get that out front right away. Let your parents know, hey, do you have wrestle offs? Or do coaches determine the lineup? So that's a big thing to accomplish. Academics, academic support. Which coaches in your staff can help those students who may be struggling? Find a parent liaison who can help. Skin disease forms. What happens when my son's going to miss practice? Do I text you, coach, or does he email you or text you? If he's in school all day, this is a good one. In school all day, shoots you a text at 3:30 and then tells you he's missing practice. Wait a minute. Why didn't you stop by my classroom or stop by my office and let's have that conversation?
That's communication. That's communication 101 right there. And you're teaching your kid, listen, yes, you have every opportunity to go to Mr. Hancock's office and talk with him about the situation, but you avoided that and you sent him a text. Not appropriate.
Yeah, because a lot of times they fear not getting the answer they want, right? So if it's me, hey, you're not feeling well, why don't you come in and ride the bike today? We'll see how you feel, right? Sometimes these guys would rather go home and recover. There's days where I say, hey, go home, recover, let's get healthy and see how you feel tomorrow. So You're not exactly sure what you're going to get out of coach, but it's still imperative to communicate. So communicating is not easy. I've been in the coaching business now for close to 15, 20 years. But it's imperative, right? Wrestling is such an intimate sport. It's such a hard sport, right? It's imperative that you have those communications and dialogue, with your parents as best as you know how, right?
Yeah,
and if a situation gets ugly, use the 24-hour rule. Nothing's going to help the situation when you respond during an emotional time.
Absolutely, 100%. It's a great rule across all sports, and it should be utilized, especially when you get emotional. I'm glad you brought up the weight management and skin stuff, because I like to talk about that, because wrestling, like you said, is unique. And the newbie parent that has never done this before and they hear the word ringworm sends them running. So I try to really diffuse that situation in the parent meeting and let them know what we're doing to mitigate the skin disease stuff and to mitigate the weight cutting. We don't even use the word weight cutting. Weight management is what we talk about. And I let them know I've never asked one kid to cut weight. That's something that the kid will come to me and do it. And we talk about how that's being handled. And I talked to the wrestlers about this. I'm like, listen, you have a mom who has no idea about wrestling. Don't go home and tell her that you're cutting weight and you haven't ate in 3 days. You're not going to be able to wrestle anymore. So we have to go through that. You have to teach your kids and communicate with them about those things, because it's not the truth. But you'd be amazed at how many kids want that sympathy. They want that attention, because they're working hard, and they're cutting that weight, or they're managing their weight. So, and the discipline that they're going through. So it's important for that I give them that attention and practice and let them know how proud I am of them, and be positive with them. So they don't have to go find it in other areas, especially with their teachers, right? You don't want teachers in your school thinking that you're making kids not eat for 2 days. So it's a very good point that you brought up.
Yeah, and the state has their nutrition platform that you can use too. They have an awesome, PowerPoint that most states do on their state website, association website, that you can use with your parents during that parent meeting. In Michigan, I know it's mandatory, right, that you educate your parents on those issues. So it's something really good and positive to cover at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
Talk about, I know this is maybe, a problem for certain programs in the state. Talk a little bit about the postseason, right? So I've had some issues with incoming freshman parents, and you indicated my way parents, right, that think their sons should be in the postseason. And when maybe they don't get entered, they're extremely frustrated. Do you deal with that often?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, where it's helpful that I deal with it through my wrestlers, because the wrestlers really understand what is going on. And then sometimes the wrestler will take it out of context and tell the parents something maybe that's not going on. And then I have to have that one-on-one conversation. But, we're in a fortunate situation where sometimes I'll have 17, 18, 19, 20 guys that I could enter into districts, and it becomes a really difficult decision. But most of that is done. You said wrestle off policy and things like that. We cover those things so they understand it. But because we have multiple schedules, obviously this year is different with COVID. It kind of helps, people, the writing's on the wall there. And I think we really just push the fact that we have a program that is worth staying in. It's going to make you a better human being. It's more than just winning state championships. It's about making better men. So when it comes down to it, we have the discussion one-on-one with every kid when we're going into the postseason about who's doing what, and just being very transparent, and that's just this Coach's Corner is about communication, and transparency and communication go hand in hand. So it's important that you are being transparent with your athletes and your parents. And I kind of do that through my wrestlers, and it's worked out for me so far. I haven't really run into too many issues.
Yeah, and I think, for any successful equation, parents have to be on board, right? So don't shy away from your parents. I know there's a lot of coaches out there. I don't like talking to my parents. I can't stand communicating with my parents. They're part of the equation, right? They're the parents of your athletes. You have to get them on board, get them to obviously support the program and support you as a coach. And that's your job as an educator, right? We're here to foster and help that relationship develop. And make the most of it. So don't shy away from it. If you're not great at it, right, try and hire a coach who may be a really good communicator and can help you, right? So you can delegate those, situations to other coaches as well. So just do your best and be positive.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off that, because I think, I really enjoy my parents. I enjoy them a lot, and I think they get to see me on all the different levels. So I think that's where doing fundraisers and doing community service activities and finding ways to interact with parents outside of the wrestling world is really helpful, because you create those relationships with those parents, and then you want to communicate with them, and they understand what you're going through. So if you're not doing those things and they only see you when you're in the corner coaching their kid, it becomes very difficult. They don't know who you are. So I just think creating opportunities to have a informal opportunity to hang out with the parents and be with them is super important to help with that kind of communication.
Well, it goes back to, we talked in an earlier vlog about out-of-state travel, right? So having the opportunity to get in a bus and travel somewhere with their son, to the point where they can build that level of trust, and you're with their son the entire weekend, right? So like you said, it provides for enjoyable moments, but it also provides for a level of trust to be established, all right, at the beginning of the year. So it takes place throughout the remainder of their career. So parents are a huge part of the equation. You need them on board. We've been very fortunate here, and we're blessed here at Catholic Central to have some amazing parents, and like I said, parents are a huge part of that equation.
Absolutely. Big part of it. And I think just goes hand in hand. The communication is a huge part of our sport. It's a huge part of running a program. And I think this is going to be a good soundbite for a lot of people out there. I hope they pay attention and listen. And I'd love some feedback on this stuff, because I know that there's other ways to communicate out there that people are using that, I'd like to use, because I think we can always get better at what we're doing. So make sure that if you guys want to hear us talk about something else, that you get a hold of us. We have got some emails about what they want us to talk about. They've been helpful. So we're going to try to do all the things that people are requesting out there. So, and again, hope you guys are enjoying the Wrestling Vaults as you guys are getting into the first competition this upcoming weekend.